So hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest with me. This is Amit Patankar, and he is currently working as a senior software engineer at one of the top FAANG companies. And today with Amit, we are going to talk about his journey into software engineering, his experiences at UCB, interning at Apple, starting his own companies, and about mainly about solving problems with machine learning. And Amit is one of the designers and contributors of the very popular TensorFlow library. So really excited to have you here, Amit. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just jump into it and let's just start from the beginning, right? So you majored in electrical and computer science from UCB, right? And so how was this experience at such a prestigious institution for you, and how do you think it has helped you?
Yeah, it was very difficult. I would say. I think Berkeley is blessed to be in so close to Silicon Valley, where there are plenty of opportunities to collaborate and get resources from top tech companies like Apple, Xilinx, Google, Facebook. But it is also very difficult. The caliber of students that were there were very impressive, and I definitely found it to be very difficult to stand out because we were surrounded by such talented people, but there are also some really smart people, also really humble, who I really enjoyed working with. You really get to push yourself. In the beginning of UC Berkeley, my freshman year, I honestly didn't know how to code. It was very difficult. My first programming assignment, it was going to take, I think, 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 10 hours because, I didn't even understand the foundations of computer science. I just knew I liked robotics and I wanted to be an engineer. But then at the end of it, I was, designing self-driving cars, and I was working on, projects like a trash can where you throw the trash, it actually catches it underneath.
Okay.
And you don't even realize that you're making the transformation from someone who's just starry-eyed about engineering into someone who can actually build. And I really credit the university, the faculty, the professors, the GSIs, the TAs, and all my friends for really helping me get to that point. So yeah, Berkeley was great.
Yeah, and you even considered dropping out in the first month, right? So what would you be your advice to someone having the same thoughts, or who's struggling?
Yeah, I posted on LinkedIn after my most recent promotion, because I feel like we always hear stories of success, and I feel like it's also important to highlight the process and the struggle to get to a certain level. So I wanted people to know that, it's okay to struggle. I've gotten bad grades, failed midterms. I've struggled with homework assignments. I've just been unable to finish projects, and I feel like there's a stigma associated with that because you don't want to remember it, you don't want to talk about it. But I wanted to make sure that people knew that it wasn't a smooth road, it wasn't an easy and obvious trajectory to get here. And I did consider dropping out. I remember sitting in my dorm thinking, is this the right fit? Is it going to work? If I can't make it through week 1, how am I going to make it to another 200 weeks? And I decided to just take it a day at a time. I thought, if I can finish this computer science homework assignment, then I'll think about dropping out. And I finished it. And then if I can just get through this physics problem set, then I'll reevaluate everything. And you just keep pushing those dark thoughts further and further down, and you break everything down into smaller, simpler goals. And then you're more likely to get there. But it definitely isn't easy. So to people who are struggling, who are worried, thinking about dropping out, if you really love tech and technology and computer science and coding and engineering or whatever it is, I recommend just pushing through it. Anything worth doing is hard.
Yeah.
And I think
if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So hope I haven't rambled too much here, but yeah, I think just stick with it. And ask for help, GSIs or graduate students, instructors, and TAs. They're there to help you. Sometimes it's hard to talk to a professor, but maybe if you're looking for career opportunities, reach out to someone who is a year above you, or just, make friends at an info session or something, and leverage the people around you to get to that next step.
So I have a question, like, did you actually know before you joined that it was going to be so tough? No, right? Or did you have
No,
some, okay.
I had no idea. And you know what's interesting is I actually got my freshman year books and I studied the books the summer before university. And I still found it ridiculously hard, because you're not really prepared for it, right? And there was a professor that actually warned us. He said, you guys are here because you were some of the smartest students in university, in your high school. But now when you take all of the smartest and you kind of make them compete against each other on a bell curve or for the same grades, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be exponentially tougher. And yeah.
Okay.
I was not prepared.
Okay. So tell me something. What are your thoughts about getting a college degree today in order to have like a great career in CS, right? Especially with the pandemic and all, right? The whole outlook has changed quite a bit. So do you think it is as valuable as it used to be? Or like, what is your take on it?
So I guess I can really only speak to, a computer science or an engineering degree.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the concept of, getting an undergrad degree is much broader. I think it depends on what your goals are. And, we are slowly migrating towards, certifications and, 1-year programs or associate degrees. And I think that, that's mostly driven because of the high cost of tuition. And I think that's that migration is going to happen. I personally think that 4 years of learning things is always valuable. So I think, I don't think that you need a degree to have a successful tech career, but I definitely think it helps.
Okay.
And so given that, I say, look at your options. If money is an issue, then obviously, consider that. But if you can potentially carve it out and you do get an opportunity to go to university you really want to go to and study in a program you really want to, then it definitely makes sense. But it's one of those questions that, in my opinion, doesn't really have an answer. It really is individualized and based on what you feel.
Tell me about Excelerate, right? That was your first startup that you started in college, right? So how do you get the idea? How did it all start?
Yeah, so I used to take SAT prep classes.
Okay.
And the classes didn't really work. So should I provide more background on the SAT, or it's just a standardized test that you take?
Yeah, I mean, it is like the JEE mains in India for the people who
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But I realized that the classes were almost useless. The thing that helped me was I would just keep doing practice tests, find which problems I made a mistake on, group those problems, and then just do those problems, like targeted study. And once I realized that, only subject verb tense agreement or only 30, 60, 90 triangles in geometry was my weakness, I just focused on those and I improved hundreds of points within weeks.
I see.
So I thought, okay, why not just create a software that kind of does that? So I created a database of all the tests that people practice with, like the most popular tests.
Yeah.
Created, categories of different question banks and created a software that allowed users to input their answers, and then it would give them a personalized study plan. It would do score projections, suggest colleges to apply to, stuff like that. So that's how that started. And I was fortunate to work with a lot of really cool people, Neil, Kevin, Ladan, Anthony, who I still am very close with to this day, to make that, dream a reality. And we won a startup competition from Chapman University that gave us a little bit of funding and a little bit of runway to keep going with the idea. And we just, started selling SAT prep software. So, I was part like full-time student, and then on the weekends and when I had time, I was calling SAT prep centers and, flying out to demo software, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Okay. And you even interned at some of the big companies like Nest and Apple, right? So how was interning? So you had this Excelerate experience, okay, of like running a company and also interning at such huge companies, such well-oiled machines. How did this help you become a better engineer, right? So what was what were some of the things that you learned from these experiences that you did not know before?
That's a great question. And I actually recommend everyone who's, pursuing tech to have in their undergraduate career an opportunity to work at a startup, whether it's their own or someone else's as an intern, and work at a large company. And the reason is you learn very different skill sets in both. So at a startup, you are just thrown onto the most important project day one. There's no like time to learn. You literally have to deliver, or else, sometimes the company's future doesn't, like, it is dependent on it. It's very high pressure. You need to be clutch. You need to deliver. And you get to work with like anything. Like one day you might be working on front end. The next day, if there's a server outage, you might be working on scalability or in the cloud. You get to really touch a lot of different things. What I like about big companies as internships is that they teach you how to work in a very formalized environment. So, writing design documentation, working on a particular project, and then just focusing mostly on, the exact project that you're assigned to is very important. And, like working with a manager, working with a director, hitting weekly goals and targets, it's a very different atmosphere, right?
The processes, right? At big companies, they have all these processes built in, and like I don't think you get the experience of understanding those processes and even incorporating some of those in your own startup or the smaller company.
Yes, exactly. And so I recommend working in both, and you realize that you might find one more enjoyable, or you realize you might want to do one in your early career and one in your later career. So like for me, I really loved working at Nest, really loved working at Apple. So I decided to, join a large company after graduating.
Now that you work at like a top FAANG company, what are some things that you really, really enjoy there and that you really have fun daily?
So I think the people are always the best part of the job. I think, the work after a certain while is always changing, is always fluctuating, but I think the people, I've worked with some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, some of the most humble people, PhDs in machine learning who are at the top of their field, to people who are experts in linear algebra, to people who've just shipped, like I worked with someone who shipped the first iPhone, to ask, like, and he like talk to Steve Jobs regularly, and you get to meet people who are part of Silicon Valley folklore. You get to learn from them. I think that's one of the absolute best parts, like learning from such talented people, getting mentors who have walked the walk, talked the talk. It's fantastic. I also think that the well-being that large companies put on your mental health and your, physical health is excellent. Like I think free food on campus is such a great thing because, it's healthier. You're not worried about cooking. You can, don't have to worry about driving off campus for lunch. You can have work conversation over the lunch table, like right downstairs. It's great. I think, when companies provide gyms and all these other amenities on campus, it really gives you like a sense of loyalty and you trust them because they really genuinely have your best interests at heart. Some more fun answers. We have a flag football and a basketball team at work. I love, participating in them. I love the different clubs that we have that have different meetings every now and then. With regards to work, it's also great to have the latest and greatest hardware. Make sure that there's no resource that prevents you from doing your work. You can, if you're interested in something. So, for example, I was interested in a different project or a different study. Like I wanted to learn about data pipelines and Apache Beam and Flume. I got to do a project on that, even just for a quarter, even though it was unrelated to my priority task. So I think that's definitely some of my favorite things. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds really, really great. Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about machine learning because I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in that. So let's start from the beginning, right? So when did you know that you wanted to build a career in machine learning, or like when did this field interest you?
Yeah, so I was a year out of undergrad, and granted, I had never done a machine learning class in my life. I was doing robotics and firmware engineering. And there was a breakthrough in, compute power combined at the exact same time that a paper in neural networks was published, and the performance on these models was insane. And it was around the same time as blockchain was becoming a big thing too.
Yeah.
But I think, blockchain's technology kind of got lost in the cloud of cryptocurrency, but machine learning was, true to its original intent. And I realized that, hey, this can solve some of society's and humanity's greatest problems. And it has the potential to if applied properly. And I really wanted to be a part of that. So I started, taking classes through work in machine learning, like, and, just kept sending out resumes, begging someone to give me a chance, and then ended up getting into it. Yeah.
So it was more of the realization that using this tool, you can make an impact, and that feeling of or wanting to make that impact that pushed you to learning it, right? Pursuing it.
Yeah, 100%. I think every career gives you the opportunity to join an up and coming field. Like, for example, in 2007, maybe working on smartphones was going to be the next thing. Or maybe in 2015, working in IoT was like the new thing.
In 1998, building a website was the big thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. The internet and web traffic, all that was a big thing. So I think if you love working on new things and being a part of the story that's written by those new things, I think, you just have to jump on these opportunities. And I was very fortunate to be given the opportunity to do exactly that.
So one thing that I noticed on your website, you have described yourself as a machine instructor. And even I have had that thought at some point, right? And I guess when we met, this was like the first question that I wanted to ask you, and we had this conversation.
I remember.
Yeah. So why do you think a machine instruction makes more sense than this, term machine learning?
It's honestly, it's not a technical thing. It's really more of a joke. In the sense of when you're feeding data into a neural network, you're teaching the machine to learn, right?
Yeah.
Same way when you're growing up, when a teacher is giving you information and you're learning, you're making the patterns in your head. They're your teacher, they're your instructor. And so and on my website, I wanted to brand myself, so I said machine instructor, and I guess that term is taken on a new interesting twist in life. But that's actually the origin. It was kind of a joke in that when you're performing machine learning, you're training a model, you're teaching it. So you are the machine instructor and the machine is learning. So that's where that term came from.
So being so closely related with the field of AI, ML, RL, where do you think this is heading towards, right? So this is 2020. And where do you think the future of machine learning, or even machine learning, is becoming obsolete, right? It's all deep learning now. Where is this entire field of training computers heading towards, according to you?
So I think there are two avenues. I think the two biggest things that will be changed are prediction and automation. So for example, with regards to prediction, healthcare diagnoses will either be better than they've ever been or more accessible than they've ever been. And what I mean by that is I was working on a project where I was trying to determine whether someone had heart disease, and we could get it to maybe 90% accuracy. And let's say a cardiologist is 99% accurate, just based on some vital signs and just based on some vital signs and some other very shallow metrics. Yeah. Now, the 99% cardiologist would be great for, people who can afford, healthcare, but a 95% solution will be still great for emerging markets where, healthcare is not, ubiquitous everywhere. And, everything from that to fraud prevention, figuring out which credit card transactions are, fake, to, threats for example, terrorist attacks and things of that nature. I think prediction and machine learning are going to go a long way. Now, there's a big problem with that, where the models that are trained are, being trained with human bias in mind. So, for example, marginalized demographics who maybe would be prejudiced in society are going to still be prejudiced again, or will still have the models will still have prejudice against them because they're trained on human prejudice, right? And I think that's something. ML fairness is a huge field that I'm genuinely interested and concerned about, because you don't want these models to basically potentially be the rule of law and marginalized segments of society that need to be, helped. So I think that's the future I see with prediction. And I think an even larger thing is going to be automation. I think if you look at a lot of jobs, they are all very repetitive and very similar in nature. And I think that it's only a matter of time before reinforcement learning and, like something like for example, for self-driving slowly takes over different fields and it'll be the preferred method. And as unfortunate as that is, I think there's going to be a significant amount of the population that won't have jobs. So for example, I think, fast food restaurants and cooking in those, I think that's going to be automated through RL. I think, self-driving cars, self-driving trucks, security, for example. I think, at a certain point, cameras are going to get so sophisticated that they'll be able to versus manual police patrol. I think that there's going to be a significant displacement in jobs, and it is unfortunate. And once again, this is just my humble opinion. I am by no means an expert in my opinion, but I think one thing that we should look into in that regard is thinking about universal basic income. And I think that that's only going to make more and more sense as there are just fewer and fewer jobs to do. And if we get to a point where machines are doing most of the jobs, it's not fair to have people who are just displaced and out of work. And I think that's where the government needs to come in and help them out. And so I think those are the two major jumps I see in machine learning going forward.
I see. As software engineers, right? What do you think we need to be aware of, or we should keep in mind when solving such problems using machine learning?
So I guess what would you keep in mind, when building the model? Yeah. So as I mentioned before, fairness and bias. Is your data set indicative of prejudice or bias against a certain group? What are the worst case scenarios of your ML model? So for example, when you're dealing with heart disease, it's obviously better to misdiagnose someone with heart disease, and say that they have heart disease when they don't, versus telling someone that they're healthy when they do have it. So for example, false positives. Yeah, exactly. And testing. I think testing is people, when they have a new model, they just want to ship it and deploy it and serve it. And I think testing is really important. And I think proper ML testing, getting as much data as possible, trying it on different markets before really releasing something is super important. And I think those are the things that I at least try to do.
So do you think that something, a general intelligence like, Iron Man's Jarvis is going to be a reality anytime soon?
I personally don't think so. Not within the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert on that. I think we'll get close mock-ups that are just fun toys, but I don't think it'll be of actual utility.
Yeah, but I think AI is going to get very good at specific things than very good at a lot of general things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think that's where deep learning shows its strength, right? It can do that exact thing 100% well.
Yeah.
Modify the input even a little bit and it's useless, so
Okay. So I mean, let's step back for a second. Do you think that AI, this entire term AI and the people have overhyped this a little bit? Do you think so?
I don't think they've overhyped it. I think that sometimes people make the impacts of it seem a little overhyped, I guess.
Okay.
But I don't think they've overhyped the potential fully. I think that a lot of what people say it can do and are worried about are possible in the inevitable future. I do think the timeline is just much broader than people make it.
Got it. Okay. So if as a new grad software engineer, right? Um, as somebody who's interested in AI machine learning, right? What do you think would be a good first step into this field, right? Into like breaking into this field. What do you think somebody like me should start learning first?
I think the best thing to do, and I'm assuming you're asking before you even get a job, is that?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, of course, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I would just start making models and
Mm-hmm.
deploying them and seeing how they work. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
more fun ones, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that really gets you into the mood of it and
Mm-hmm.
teaches you the latest
Yeah.
APIs. I remember my first model that I trained end to end was predicting whether quarterbacks in American football, when they're drafted a particular position, what would do well or not. You know,
Yeah.
and it's something that you're passionate about, something that you can show. I just think get your hands dirty with the latest frameworks, whatever you use, and the latest APIs, and make something that you can display, put it on a website, and just
Yeah.
have fun with it. I think that's the best way.
Yeah. Also, that reminds me of Keras, right? So with Keras, building model has become like so easy, and so much more people have started, building their own models, and which is great, right? We have got to see so many cool projects come up. But do you also feel like people are jumping into such complex things without actually learning the fundamentals of software engineering? Any thoughts on that?
That's a very good question. I think that 100% people are blackboxing
Mhm.
machine learning. So for example, like I took a course where we manually did the back propagation calculation, and
Yeah,
it got down to the calculus level of everything.
yeah,
But now when you just literally just change a few numbers, and you know that
yeah,
if you put in data and you
yeah,
ship it in, I think
yeah.
that's definitely possible. I think it really comes down to the person, right? I
Mhm.
personally need to know what's in every black box.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's a bad thing.
Mhm.
But I do think that there are definitely people who kind of treat it as a black box, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Because maybe you don't have access to or the opportunity to take the course in so heavily in depth. But if you
Yeah,
are just a non-technical person who just wants to prove a proof of concept, or see if their business data, their fraudulent activities in it, or you don't necessarily need to know like the
yeah,
more advanced
mhm.
embeddings or dropout or whatever,
Yeah,
what have you. So yeah, I definitely think it's
yeah,
happening, but
yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Or do you feel like since things like Keras has become so simple, people are kind of uh, trying to solve problems that can be solved without these, huge models, and kind of like forcing the solution onto a problem rather than solving for the problem? Do you see this happening?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think people throw neural networks and deep learning at problems that can be solved with a simple linear regression, or even a non-machine learning like algorithm, like just
Yeah.
decision trees or something like that. I do see that. I don't think it matters though, as long as you get the performance that's desired. So,
Mhm.
if you can throw something at it, why not, right? Most of ML and building that first model is experimentation anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's no guarantee that ML will provide a worse or better
Mhm.
response. So, why not go for it and see what happens?
Yeah. Okay. How do you think that people should approach solving problems using deep learning? Or like, do you have any process to that? Or to rephrase my question, I think how do you decide if using something like a deep learning is a good solution to a problem, right? Because there are some of these problems where you might or might not get a good result when you put a neural network on it. Is there any criteria, is there any process that you think about?
And once again, I don't consider myself like an expert or think I have the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I can try it on a data problem, I
Mm-hmm.
will.
Okay.
So if I can try deep learning easily, I will do it. If I can try, k-means clustering easily, I will do it. If I can try decision trees, I will do it. There's, I think everyone is a little different, and that just may go to show that I'm not accurate, but I personally just like to try everything, because it's just fun as well to do that.
Yeah.
So, and also you get to learn, right? Like,
Yeah.
so if you're doing image recognition, I will try with, just rasterizing the image, and then, doing deep learning, and then I'll try with the CNN because the cost is so low. There's like no reason to
Yeah.
modify to do something like that. I'll try using pre-trained models also.
Okay.
At the end of the day, whatever works and get you past that magic threshold consistently is what's important.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So after working on TensorFlow, right, what are some of the most interesting problems that you've come across that people are solving using TensorFlow, or like that's making an impact today?
Yeah, one of my favorite examples is actually from India, where they
Okay.
use TensorFlow to do a live mapping of the AQI, air quality index, based on various, I think, based on photos and, smoke sensors and stuff like that. I think that's very cool. The usual suspects, the cucumber farmer who sorts his cucumbers, or the
Yeah.
cassava plant to see if they have disease. But my absolute favorite has to be the team that is working on predicting whether someone has melanoma using the mobile app.
Yeah.
That has such great application and great impact, even out like I said, in emerging markets where getting access to a dermatologist is not immediate. And I think the ubiquity of smartphones have definitely helped uh, that propagation. I'm trying to think. I met someone who's using uh, machine learning and TensorFlow and various APIs to for homeland security and
Oh,
tracking
okay.
terrorism activities, and chatter on like thousands and thousands of pages of phone audio, phone transcripts and stuff like that, which I thought was very interesting. Yeah. So, actually, cooking. There's a company that I saw. I don't know if they use TensorFlow. They have something called Gastrograph, which basically caters different food items to different regions. So, for example, if you like creamier milk, you add just a touch of vanilla that actually mimics the same taste flavor as creamier milk, right?
Okay.
Without actually adding more fat into the cream, like into the milk. So things like that, or like they work on which gin flavors are better for New York, where they might like something, versus South America they might. I think that's fascinating. So that's I'm really excited to eat at a machine learning driven restaurant one day.
So, what are the three things that you would tell a 20-year-old Amit, or people starting out, like me, who want to build a great career in software engineering? What would be your advice?
I love this question. I think
Yeah.
my answer changes every few months.
Yeah.
20-year-old me would be, I think, a junior in college. So I would tell him that, make more friends and broaden your network. Because as I mentioned before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I think another thing is that people, get caught up in, non-work related things that kind of can become distractions. And it's good to have hobbies, I guess. And I meant in the sense of like, I would focus more on my craft and my passion, and do just that in undergrad. I would tell him to not worry about the rejections and the no's so much, because all it takes is one yes, right? So um, I would always stress out if I got rejected from a technical interview, or if someone didn't like me, or if I made it to the super day interview and I then don't get an offer. I think I wouldn't stress too much about that. Be more confident in yourself. Like, I remember when my first round at Apple was done, I thought I did so badly, I considered messaging my interviewer on LinkedIn and asking for another chance. And my friends were like, don't do that. That's stupid. And then the next day he's like, oh, I really liked you. I want to invite you on campus. So I was like, okay, wow. Like, maybe you do a lot better, or people think of you a lot better than you give yourself credit. So I guess be more confident. Um, don't sweat the little things. Like, as I mentioned before, grades and all. Take classes that you really love. Don't take classes because they're prerequisites or you think they'll help you in another class. I made that mistake quite a bit. Take classes in futuristic technology, not like, tried and true technology, because you can always learn that later.
Yeah.
Like taking classes, like for example, if I took a class in deep learning when it wasn't even a big thing, would have been so much more helpful than taking a class in like, analog circuits, which obviously is not as useful to me. So I guess that's the advice that I'd give you as well. And it's a numbers game, whether it's an internship, master's program, whatever, or a full-time employee, a full-time job, just keep applying. Like the more you apply, the more interviews you get, the more chances of getting a yes. Don't just stick to 3 companies, apply, and then when you go 0 for 3, be upset. Just keep going.
I think that is a very, very practical piece of advice that everybody can start doing right now today, right?
Yeah. And another thing is, I think, and this is unrelated, and I like to think I live by this, be nice to people. Don't I remember, like, the halls of an engineering campus are not always the most polite. People are mean to you if you make a stupid mistake, or if you ask a stupid question, or if you do badly. Be nice to everyone. Make it a welcoming environment, and a productive environment for everyone. I think people might not remember you, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. If you do make a crack or a joke at someone at their expense, people are going to remember that forever. And later on down the line, when you run into that person, they're not going to forget that. So be nice, be supportive, and, life is not as much of a competition as it is a collaboration.
Awesome. That's really amazing. So can you tell me a little bit about your mentors, or the people who have helped you reach where you are today, and maybe even some advice on people who are looking for a mentor, right? How can you approach, or where to look for?
So I guess my first mentors were my mom and dad. Like, obviously, I think you learn a lot by just, like, I learned a lot by just watching them and how hard they work, the sacrifices they made. So, that work ethic was instilled in me. That ability to take failure at face value, and keep going, was instilled in me. 100%. I think, my managers everywhere I've been have been excellent mentors as well. My manager at Apple, Dave, is one of my closest friends to this day. Has written letter of recs for me. He actually, when he moved to Nest, he brought me over, which just goes to show that, like, it's who you know, not necessarily what you know. Other people at Nest, Gio, Terry, who've been so supportive. Even like they're, if you like 10 to 15 years older than me, but they still we're like, hey, this guy's young. Let's take him under our wing, teach him everything from like finance to like how to invest to how to grow their career. I'm forever grateful for that. At my current job, my tech lead, my managers, my mentors, Gunan, John, Jesu, just Martin, like everyone has just been so nice. And they're a big part of where I am today. I think it takes a village, right, to get promoted. I think, like, if you consider what I've gotten, success, I would say that they all own a big piece of that. And then I think your friends too, even though they're not necessarily your mentors, the people that you surround yourself with really dictate how you hold yourself. And that, some of my best friends, like Adiv, Jay, Sid, obviously forgetting some people, but like they've been so inspiring and influential to me through everything. And I've always had my back. I've always been nothing but supportive. Definitely wouldn't be able to do it, without them. So I think, like now looking back on it, now the reminiscing, I realize how lucky I am to have so many mentors, so many great friends who helped me get to this spot. And to the people I forgot to mention, I'm so sorry, but I love you.
So Amit, what is the best way to reach out to you where people can connect with you?
Yeah, so my Twitter is AV8RAMIT24.
I'll put it in the description. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, you can always DM me on Twitter, LinkedIn. It's easy to find me. My website, amitpatankar.com. There's a contact form below. Feel free to send whatever. I usually respond to those better than email, just because I like to know what channel it's coming from and context behind it and everything. Just because I get so many emails now. So yeah, that would be the best way to contact me. So awesome. If any of you guys want any advice, or if there's anything I can help you guys with, more than happy to help out.
Thank you so much, Amit, for doing this. This was like really, really amazing. And I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. So thank you so much. I hope we can do this again sometime. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Adarsh. Really enjoyed going down memory lane by talking to you today. And take care. Bye. See you.